12 years ago, Newcastle pinned its shipbuilding hopes on the Dutch M-class frigate. Canberra went with the German-designed MECO 200, with 10 to be built at Williamstown in Victoria. Hard luck for Hunter Shipbuilding.
It virtually closed it down. It just closed it down overnight.
The MECO 200's weapons and radar systems are designed to be easily interchangeable, but in response to concerns over the Anzac class's capabilities in sea-to-air combat, the RAN investigated the cost of upgrading the ships to give them long-range aerial capabilities. Reports have now emerged that the only way the ships could cope with the extra weight involved would be to lengthen them, which has now been ruled out as too expensive.
The consortium that Newcastle was going with at the time were for the bigger frigates, and I think that's now come home to roost, that a decision was made, and probably a bad one, on the particular supplier at the time.
There will be more holes to fill in the Navy's aerial defence capability with the phasing out of its ageing DDG-class destroyers. Among the options being investigated by the Defence Department are the purchase of mothballed US warships or the commissioning of new vessels to fulfil the long-range aerial combat role, while at the same time increasing the Anzac frigate's firepower. The Australian Business Chamber hopes Newcastle will be given a chance to provide the replacements and upgrade the frigates.
The infrastructure's here, we have the people in Newcastle to do it.
Spain was probably our best result of last year, so I must say I'm fairly confident going there.
It's not your average tent. For 2 months it was a point of solidarity for 342 sacked National Textiles workers owed $11.2 million in entitlements. Now they've been fully paid out. Workers, both former and future, today pulled the tent down in a symbolic gesture.
It's the start of a new era. May these tents never be erected again in the name of out-of-work workers.
It's not the last we'll see of the tent though. Workers plan to pitch it once a year to remember their titanic struggle.
To remind the public and politics and big business that there was an issue here other than National Textiles, and with our help we can remind them.
Meanwhile, there's a ray of hope for 90 sacked Scone Fresh Meats workers battling for $700,000 in entitlements, with Liberal Senator John Tierney to put forward their case in Canberra next week. To qualify for the Howard government's rescue package, they must live in an area of high unemployment and work in an industry undergoing rapid change.
And I think the Scone Meat Works fulfil that requirement so that we can actually top up above the basic safety net provision of money and entitlements.
Blake Doyle, NBN News.
From removing hundreds of metres worth of weeds from the shores of Belmont Lagoon to planting, fencing and construction projects across the region, the 7 Green Corps trainees certainly earned their stripes. Today they received their graduation certificates at a ceremony in Redhead and were thanked for a job well done. But the 6-month course was far from just hard work. Valuable skills were also learned.
All sorts of skills like communication skills, just skills on how about going to get the job done properly.
There was more good news for Lake Macquarie, with Liberal Senator John Tierney handing over $231,000 to Council for the fight against pollution. The majority will be spent on a new wetland system at South Creek to trap nutrients and sediment, much like those set up elsewhere in the city.
I think they're crucial, and most people agree that they're crucial because it's not much good cleaning up the lake if you're not going to stop the runoff getting into the lake.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Checking the form guided training, Andrew Johns had pulled up lame himself after a stair exercise run.
Just trained really high up my hamstring, doing some stair work. I overstrided and just strained it a little bit, and I've seen Neil Halpin and seen the doctors and the physios, and they said give it a day or two and I'll be right.
Brother Matthew was at training for his first run since injuring his ankle, along with Justin Holbrook, who's on standby for Joey, but the brother combination is most likely to start.
I think me and Matthew will be right, and hopefully McDougall, Gidley and Badiris will play well with their first game back.
But most are keen to see the clash of the 5/8s, with Fitlot lining up for the Roosters.
They always, rise to play against each other, and obviously playing for the Australian jumper, they're both looking to have big ones.
Both Matthews, Johns and Gidley came through today's session without too much trouble, indicating they'll be fine to play the Roosters. Winger Adam McDougall is almost a certain starter as well, but a lot will depend on how he recovers from his first training run for some weeks over the weekend.
Pretty confident that I'll be right. I've been working overtime with the podiatrist Aaron Walker and the physios, obviously Lisa Tynan, but it's improved dramatically throughout the week, and I'm pretty confident I'll be right come Monday night.
All the action on NBN from 8:30.
The privately owned pit special from Wollongong was en route to Rutherford. The pilot and his passenger decided to take a spin around the Hunter Valley, but they had more of a spin than they bargained for.
It looked like a model aircraft had hit the ground. It was destroyed, broken like balsa.
It's thought that the aerobatic biplane got into trouble while the pilot was doing some low-level manoeuvres. The airplane clipped the top of several trees and flew on for nearly 100 metres before coming down.
Initial contact was approximately 80 metres from the final resting spot. Quite a few trees knocked down, came to a skidding halt, and that's the end result. Lucky boys.
The Westpac rescue helicopter was called in to winch the two men out of the scrub.
We winched the paramedics into the scene. They in turn treated the patients. We both winched them back out and returned to the John Hunter Hospital.
One of the pair has a fractured cheekbone, the other a fractured wrist, but both men are listed as satisfactory. Adam Harper, NBN News, Late Edition.
Up against the club that didn't want him before he joined Newcastle, Andy Harper was keen to make an impression. But it was Brisbane which had most of the early running and took the lead midway through the first half with a sweet left-foot strike to Englishman Peter Grierson. It didn't get much better for the Breakers. A heavy clash between Mark Wilson and Nick Meredith saw both replaced soon after. And while John Bonavolia just missed a rare first-half chance, Brisbane finished superbly once again before the break for a 2-goal lead, sending Jade North and the Strikers in a spin. Needing goals, Greg Owens came on after the break with that in mind. But Newcastle's first came from a corner and almost went to skipper Shane Price before the Breakers finally did get on the board. Needing a win to keep semi-finals hopes alive, John Cosmina's men pushed up front desperate for a third. But so many times this season, the Harper-Bonavolia partnership has yielded goals, and after missing 2 games, the reunion was celebrated in style. Bonavolia's 15th goal for the season and his 4th in a week as Newcastle took a much-needed competition point from Brisbane. The Broadmeadow Basketball Stadium has long been the home of the sport in Newcastle, and now without the Falcons, the Hunters is the flagship team for a new generation of supporters. The team got off to the right start with Tony Jensen's first touch, setting up Michael Cubank. With one former Falcon watching on, another in Butch Hayes led from the front with 14 points. But the real star was Rob Apkin. Playing his first game for the Hunters in several seasons, the 25-year-old knocked down 22 points and collected 13 rebounds to help the Hunters take a 7-point win. Meanwhile, Day 2 of the Newcastle District Cricket Grand Final will be played next Saturday after play today was washed out.
For heritage supporters, today's launch marked the ultimate in self-guided tours. The sign-posted walk took in 18 destinations around Newcastle East, some of which continue to generate debate amongst residents. Newcastle Council will hear those concerns firsthand tomorrow night when a public access meeting will take in 33 objections over a proposed 7-storey tower development at Parnell Place.
I still would like the left-hand side of Parnell Place open at this stage because we don't know what's going to really happen with the buses, and we just may need that part for the buses in time to come.
The $8 million development on the former bus depot has also generated concerns from residents about its urban design and heritage, but Council denies that once again heritage concerns could be impeding in a city development.
It doesn't dampen development at all. In fact, what it does is give us opportunities to have sensitive development and development that will encourage people to come here as a tourist destination.
The issue will be debated in council chambers tomorrow night. Helen Kapalos, NBN News.
For the Volunteer Marine Rescue Association, it all began just before 2 this morning. One of a fleet of trawlers fishing off the Tweed coast had run into trouble.
When I was looking around out the sea while I was winching up, I seen a life buoy ring.
An all-night sea and air search went on until dawn and continued throughout the day. It's been a testing time for friends and family, the Tweed man's mother falsely hearing he'd been found twice in as many hours. A keen fisherman since he was just a teenager, the 27-year-old man often took the vessel belonging to his brother out on overnight trawling trips. The tight-knit fishing community still hoping and praying for their friend's safe return. The rescue is now being coordinated from Canberra, with divers preparing to investigate the submerged trawler. Police still unclear just how it came to grief.
It could very well have been nets, fishing mishap, and that's what we're putting it down to at this stage.
Despite the fine, Jack Duncan's family are still hopeful of finding him alive.
If there's any way of surviving, I'm sure he'll find it, because he knows the water, he knows the area, he knows the ocean really well. We've all grown up on the ocean.
Nicole Webb, NBN News.
Police were alerted to the grisly find early last month when 44-year-old John Price failed to turn up to work. They were then left to make the shocking discovery. The Aberdeen man's body found decapitated inside the home he shared with his de facto wife. Today in Muswellbrook Local Court, a full psychiatric assessment was ordered for 44-year-old Catherine Knight, who's charged with murder and improperly interfering with a dead body. Even though the 44-year-old woman didn't emerge from custody to make a court appearance today, security at the courthouse was beefed up, with police claiming the incident has stirred deep emotions within the communities of Muswellbrook and Aberdeen. A full police brief is still being compiled by the prosecution, with further forensic examinations to be carried out. The 44-year-old woman did not enter a plea today and no application for bail was made. The matter has been adjourned to Newcastle Local Court on the 16th of next month. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
If fighting cancer isn't enough, sufferers now have to put up with a shortage of radiation oncologists, radiation therapists and equipment.
Certainly not acceptable in terms of aiming for optimal practice, and we know that it's due to a mixture of a lack of personnel who both treat the patients and also manage the patients, and also a lack of equipment to do that with.
Things are particularly bad on the mid-north coast. Only 25% of patients are having the required amount of treatment, compared to the internationally accepted standard of 50%. And despite having 4 radiation oncologists, the Hunter isn't much better. Just 34% of patients are undergoing radiation therapy. The Department of Health is working to increase the radiation oncology workforce and upgrading equipment, but it's a slow process.
They've had a working group trying to fix this problem, but regrettably they haven't been able to create any extra positions at this time, but that's what needs to happen. And
Newcastle-based radiation oncologist Dr Peter O'Brien believes the Hunter and the Mid-North Coast regions combined need another 2 to 3 oncologists, scores of new therapists and another 2 cancer-killing radiotherapy linear accelerators.
I think one of the big questions for the Department of Health is do there need to be radiotherapy services somewhere in the Mid-North Coast, be that Taree, Port Macquarie, and those sorts of decisions have got to be made.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Cleared of a broken jaw this morning, Fitzgibbon was at the dentist to straighten teeth after a rattler last night from Tony Butterfield. Charged with a reckless tackle, the Knights captain faces a 3 to 5 week suspension.
No intentional or malice there. He purposely didn't go on the field to, hit me in the mouth.
But it's this tackle on Fitzgibbon that has the Knights fuming. Matt Parsons penalised with minutes remaining. A few tackles later and the scores were tied with a kick to come.
We didn't get a penalty for that one, and then later on in the game, Matt Parsons tackled me. It probably wasn't a high tackle, and we got the penalty for it.
The Knights will make an official complaint, but when Fitzgibbon kicked the match winner, it just added to Newcastle's woes. Matthew Johns is definitely out this weekend, as is Matt Gidley, while Ben Kennedy is in extreme doubt as well.
Ask me that at the end of the week, mate. I don't know. I'll just see how I go. I don't want to write myself off too early, but, if it's feeling like this at the end of it, there's no way I could play. 20 minutes into the game, I thought to myself, there's an opportunity to run, and I tried to run. There was just no power in the leg at all, and it just gave away on me.
Peter Shields has been named after suffering bad concussion, while Andrew Johns has also been selected despite his obvious injury problems last night. Mark Hughes will fill the 5/8 role in a new look-back line that includes 2 McDougals, while the forwards could change pending the result of Butterfield's head-high charge and Kennedy's fitness. But in the end, the team was left with one thought for the rest of the season.
If we're going to be a premiership threat, we've got to hang on to that in those tight situations.
The finance sector union believes that banking is in such a bad way across the state it requires emergency treatment. Today that message was conveyed to locals at the Hunter Mall, most concerned enough to take part in an already 3,000 strong petition.
What they're saying is they need their bank is part of their community, and we're saying because of the record profits that the banks are taking out of that community, they should have responsibility to put something back in the game.
The union says profits are coming before good service, with 19 local branches closed across the Hunter over the last 18 months. And news of an interest rate rise, along with the pending merger of the Commonwealth Bank and Colonial, doesn't help.
Since 1993, the banks have increased profits by 286%. They've made over $40 billion in profit. And what they've done on the other hand is they've reduced their branch network by 2,000 branches, and the major banks have cut their staff by 40,000.
The union is hoping to present the federal government with a petition at the end of the 2-month campaign. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
In the tradition of the well-known Starstruck School Spectacular, the students spent today rehearsing for tomorrow night's debut performance with numbers from Ricky Martin, to ABBA.
2,500 students from 50 schools. We've got about 200 teachers in support there. Featured singers, featured dancers, stage band. It's huge.
The students have spent 6 months in regular rehearsals for the show, last-minute nerves getting the better of some.
If you fall over, everyone's going to laugh at you.
Do you think you might be a pop star of the future?
Probably not.
It's a great opportunity for kids to perform. It's not something that can be done like this in the classroom, and this is the classroom with a difference.
Tickets are still available for the shows on Friday and Saturday nights and lunchtime Saturday. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Older people around here think that all teenagers are just trouble and they cause trouble, whereas teenagers are always stereotyped like that, and normal teenagers don't cause trouble.
It was really productive. A lot of people from the different schools got on so well, and I just think everything was talked about so openly.
"18 players were selected from across the state to be part of the Institute of Sport's soccer squad, an honour afforded only to the top players who could make it to national level. And it was hoped this year that Northern New South Wales might have one of their players chosen for the training program for the first time. So it was hard to believe when 8 players were selected, all from the Women's State Super League teams, as well as the coach who will now be one of the 2 new Institute team coaches.
It's been long coming. We've done well in the State League, we've done well in the National League, and we've always had sort of a good percentage of players in the national team.
And so the new faces have wasted no time. Last night they were in the gym getting in shape, including Belmont's sisters Amber and Amy Nielsen. Adam Harper, NBN News.
The jam. Hanson and beats him. Flicks it downstairs. Dwayne McLean takes him on and slams it. In the end, he picked up the bound, but Wouldn't drop for him. Ricky Grace. Finds a way through the lane. On the edges at the moment a little. As Ricky Grace goes to the basket. Is this point number 7,000? Yes, it is. They find a 3-on-2 situation. McLean with the ball. Dips off. Ken McLaren, miracle! Shot fairly tough.
Having their say about Perth taking their time.
That's the one that'll win the game for them.
An historical clash this weekend will see the two merged sides play each other for the first time, and it's shaping up to be a brutal clash. Plenty of pre-game talk with Terry Hill leading the way. Ironically, Terry, along with John Hopewadi, Craig Field, were unwanted by the Northern Eagles last year, and Terry is now personally guaranteeing something special. West Tigers have been in excellent form and will undoubtedly be targeting Jason Taylor after his shaky performance last week. But the Eagles will be ready for them, and with a bit of North Power magic and the support of the Central Coast, they could just do it. Players are starting to ask questions about this year's batch of rugby league balls. They find them hard to handle and harder to hang on to. There definitely seems to be an enormous amount of drop balls in situations where normally you would expect first-grade rugby league players to take. As the level of competition increases with fewer teams, you'd imagine it's not through lack of player ability, so maybe the ball issue might be worthwhile looking at. And on injuries, Brad Clyde received this blow last weekend, needing more than 30 stitches in his forehead. His teammates, although have found the funny side and have given him his new nickname Frankenstein, he'll most likely play on the weekend. And also Peter Shields, he didn't miss out. After this clash, he suffered a broken nose, stitches and concussion, adding to his already good looks, and he'll also play on the weekend. Round 10, and there's a couple of sensational games, none better than the Tigers-Eagles clash. But it'll be interesting to see how the Broncos go about their business after their first loss for the season. Storm beat them at ANZ last year, and the same could happen again. In other games, Parramatta over Penrith, Canberra to take out the Sharks, Knights, the Bulldogs, and St George Illawarra to win their games. Well, that's it for me. Good luck for your tips. Back to you, Jimbo.